Welcome to the Thrive TV show with Lauren Parsons, helping you boost your health, energy, and productivity.
Kia ora koutou and welcome to another episode of the Thrive TV show. I'm Lauren Parsons, your host, and today I'm joined by the amazing Steve Bouris from Melbourne, Australia, and we're talking about, is fear suffocating your freedom? So welcome, Steve.
Thanks for having me, Lauren. Great to be here. Very excited to have this conversation and chat with you today.
Likewise, we have met several times at professional speaking events, but I have never actually seen Stephen speak or heard his story in its entirety. So I am really looking forward to unpacking this and especially sharing with you, our listeners, 3 tips around understanding fear, how to upgrade your core operating system, and helping you find the courage to live the life you've always wanted. So that sounds amazing. So before we dive into that, Steve, can I just ask you my this and that questions?
Yes, let's go for it. Let's have
Cool.
some fun.
So tell me, cats or dogs?
Born with a cat, grew up with a cat, so but more love dogs, but just haven't been grown up around them. So yeah, I'm either. I'm not. I don't discriminate
Either
against either.
both? Yeah.
Both, a bit of both. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. What about beachfront or mountaintop?
Or love both, but the sanctuary is definitely in the rainforest with water running through it. So if
Okay.
I get the combination of both, that's my sanctuary. Yeah.
Nice. Okay. Hot veggies or fresh salad?
Fresh salad.
Okay. Nice. Would you rather go a week without your phone or a week without the internet?
I'd go a week without both.
Okay, nice. I love that answer. And what about live-in chef or live-in massage therapist?
Sorry, what was the first one? Living.
Live-in chef to cook your meals or live-in
Yeah.
massage therapist?
Oh, massage therapist.
Okay, nice. Yeah, I think I'd go for that too. Great.
Yeah,
Let me tell you
touch.
a little bit more about Steve. They call him the resilience warrior. When you're needing change or a fresh perspective or a new way forward, then he is your guy. He understands what it means to live life face on, full on, day in, day out, no matter what the world throws at him. Born with a Nevus, a birthmark on his forehead, this former line maintenance, aircraft maintenance engineer, he has battled fear and challenges every step of the way. Stephen's authentic vulnerability and thought-provoking insights captivate his audiences to cultivate new ways forward. Feedback highlights his ability to empower people to really embrace their uniqueness and awaken to endless possibilities. So I'm excited to chat today. So Steve, do you want to start by telling us what is it you love most about the work you're doing now?
Um, I think a big part of it is taking the challenges I experienced when I was younger, and things that kept me closed off from the world, and really using them as a superpower to now help other people find their freedom in themselves and help create change. The things that hindered me for 40 years are now what I use to help others explode out of that and find that freedom a lot earlier in life. So.
Mm. Yeah, I love that. And, for those that are just listening in and perhaps not watching in, you have this large nevus, this birthmark that covers one side of your forehead.
Yes.
What was that like for you growing up?
It's quite challenging. I mean, for me, it was all normal, and that's what part of the most challenging part I found as a child was that everything that I endured was normal. Me going out in public, being stared at, being approached, people thinking and talking about me in front of me, but knowing they're talking about me. That happened every time I went outside.
Hmm.
Random strangers coming up to me and asking me questions. That happened to me all the time, and that became my normal. As I grew up and as I probably went to the school age and I was outside in my realm with my parents and having others around me, that's when I really started to notice I was different from other people. Not everyone else had birthmarks, not everyone else got stared at, not everyone else got the attention that I was getting, which left to things feeling quite challenging and feeling quite alone in the world, especially not having any others that I could chat to or could relate to, understanding what it felt like gravitating this attention when you went out every time.
Yeah. Can you remember what that was like? Or, sort of questions that people asked you or things they said or names they called or
Yeah, I was the most common thing was what happened to your head?
yeah.
And it's like nothing. But how many times do you get asked, what happened to your head before you start believing something must be wrong for me to get asked all that all the time? But it
Wow.
was something I was born with. So my nevus, it's the size of a large mango on my forehead going into my hairline. So it probably covers about a quarter of my scalp, right? But half of it's lost in my hairline. And it was actually covered in hair when I was born, and that changed over time. So as the hair covered it, it sort of blended in with my hairstyle, so it wasn't as obvious.
Yeah.
But then as the hair stopped growing in it, then and the skin color changed, it started off more of a chocolate brown. Now it's more of a lighter brown, mid shade brown, and different to my olive Greek skin beneath it. So it's very significant, and I think it's not meeting others and seeing others the same created that bigger differentiation amongst everybody else. We see dark skinned people, we see what lighter skinned people, but a person that has both combinations in such a significant area isn't common to be seen. So it was
Mhm.
quite challenging because society wasn't educated on it.
Mm. And so, how does this relate to the work you do now with, helping people overcome fear? Tell me about that journey.
So as a child and even as a young adult, and even up to my early 40s, I didn't speak about the challenge of my birthmark. So I
Hmm.
kept all of them to myself. I suppressed the journey, I suppressed the challenges. So for most of my life, I actually lived in fear. And the fear hindered me um, until one day I opened up. And
Okay.
that happened when, all right, I'll share the story there.
Yeah.
Um, I was sitting at the airport with a good friend of mine, and we're waiting for her to depart at the departure gate. And she noticed a young girl across from me staring at me. And now we both smiled at the little girl, and she made some polite conversation with her until she departed. Then that night, she asked me, "What was your childhood like growing up with your birthmark?" And she was the first person in 40 years to ever ask me about my personal experiences.
Wow.
And in the safety of that relationship and friendship, I opened up. And I unleashed and unloaded 40 years of pain that I'd been holding and suppressing to myself. Stories I'd never shared with anyone before. And then she encouraged me to open up to my parents and my family. And with her support, I did. And then a different version of me started emerging. Someone that was unpacking all their past and
Hmm.
aspects of me I never knew existed. Right. And so that's what drove me to wanting to share my story with others, to see that by holding off and suppressing our challenges and keeping things to ourselves, we're actually debilitating and hindering ourselves from being the person we want to be. But by openly opening up and sharing our challenges and not letting them burden us and overload us, we can find so much freedom in that.
Mm.
So it's just been my own personal growth in that I share with others to help them find the freedoms and realizing that we're our own worst enemy, hindering ourselves by doing the things that we think are keeping ourselves safe are actually the things that are holding us back the most.
Wow. Okay. I want to unpack that more because I think that's really powerful. But I also want to um I think congratulate you and just I just feel this real warmth, and I'm just feel proud of you and what you're doing. And it is amazing. And it's interesting that was the pivotal moment and that no one had asked you that before. Interested to ask you as well, how did your family react? Like once you started opening up to them and sharing more about how you'd actually been feeling all of this time. How was that?
Well, imagine, I mean, I can imagine driving to my parents' house to have that conversation. I was perspiring through my jumper, through my t-shirt. After 40 years of not having conversations, how do I start a conversation with them? Right? And it was so scary. I was so scared. I was petrified. And I was wanting to run. It was the support of someone else encouraging me to go and do it. I didn't want to let her down. It's like, all right, let's have this conversation. And it's like, how do you start it? It's like, you know what? Just blurt it out. I want to have a chat with you. And my parents were shocked.
Wow.
They were absolutely shocked. I mean, I'm in my mid 40s, right? So, and I was in my early 40s at that stage. And to share things with them that they didn't know, there was so many tears, so much emotion. And also had to help navigate that conversation with them. I had to be able to express what I needed from them, which was just to listen to me.
Hmm.
I learned that through the conversation. The first conversation I had was the level of support I needed to open up because I realized some habits of people can shut conversations down. So I had to tell my parents, like, I don't need to rescue me. I don't need you to feel sorry for me. I just need you to sit there and listen to what I've got to say.
Yeah, good. Nice. And I
You
think
know,
it's
and
really
that
important
really
sometimes to
allowed,
frame those conversations like that because,
yeah,
or even as a listener, to be able to, I've learned to ask people now, do you want me just to listen here? Did you want to brainstorm some ideas? Do you want advice right now? And sometimes people, they don't want advice at all. They just want to be heard.
yeah. And I learned that that's what I needed. So I did tell them, like, I just need to sit there and listen. And they did. And it was challenging. It was emotional, very emotional, because obviously there's some things that involved them as well at the time. And they felt bad for not knowing, not picking up on things. Why didn't you come to us earlier? Yeah, all the above million questions that, all they wanted to do was help, but they
Yeah.
didn't know how to. I suppose that's a big part of what I do as well is I help parents to understand that they might not be aware that the kids can be going through stuff. And I go into that in my book of these could be the warning signs, and I teach things that my parents would have helped my parents with me, right? And those
Wow.
insights that we're not aware of. Parents try to do the best by their kids, but we're not always picking up on those signs.
So true. And I think that's the other thing that came to mind as you were speaking before is that people that are listening in themselves or their kids may not have a birthmark. But I think virtually all of us at some point through our growing up and our adolescent years have moments or perhaps days or weeks or years where we feel like we don't fit in, we feel like we're too skinny, we're too fat, we're too tall, we're too short, we're too this, we're too academic, we're not academic enough. We all, I think, struggle with this idea of going through life feeling like we're not quite good enough, but somehow it's as if we look out at everyone else and everyone else has got their mask on,
Yeah.
that they're pretending that they're okay and they're happy and they're not also struggling with the exact same feelings. And it's one of those things that runs really deeply for me as I would love to see every single young person to be able to grow up to know that no matter what they're like, they're actually just okay the way that they are. And there's no point trying to go through life trying to be more like this person or that person. I can literally remember growing up here in New Zealand and looking at a friend of mine and wishing that I was as tanned as she was, thinking, oh,
Yeah.
I'd just love to have, those tanned legs, even through winter. And my friend, she was Polynesian. Like
Yeah.
it was natural for her to be tanned. It was natural for me not to be tanned. Like, but it's so interesting, isn't it, when we start that comparison game or we try to, seek the attributes that people have. I wanted to be as cool as that person or as smart as that person or as sporty as that person. And never did I ever think about the positive attributes that I actually had. So I think that the work that you're doing in this space here, as you can tell, really, really passionate about it and so thrilled. So if you're speaking to parents of young people right now, what are the best things that they can do?
For me, I never spoke about it. So my Nevus was a topic I actually didn't talk about. And it might be shocking, and most people are shocked by it. The first conversation I had with my brothers, I'm one of three boys, the middle child,
Yep.
with my brothers about my Nevus, well, in our 40s. First time ever. So
Wow.
it wasn't a conversation that was had. And I know from my family, I was normal. It was normal for me. But the attention that I got wasn't normal. So it's having those conversations being normal, and that's why I struggled. I suppose when I was approached in public, it's like, how can I talk with strangers about my needs, but I can't talk with my brothers and my parents and my family openly about it? So it's having challenging conversations and asking them how they feel about it. Like if they're sharing an experience and how did it make them feel? And let them expel those emotions. Let them get teary, let them get angry. If that's what they're feeling, get those feelings out. We're
Mm,
afraid to ask people questions that might get them emotional because we don't want to see people upset. But
yeah.
what I've realized in my journey is that just because the tears aren't there doesn't mean they don't exist in the body. So those emotions, if they're not expelled, are actually stored in the body.
Hmm.
So by asking those challenging questions and let the tears flow, it's actually the body releasing those emotions that it's been holding on to. So having those tough and challenging conversations and being inquisitive. What's life like for you? Because you can't put yourself in my shoes and understand what it looks like to walk into a shopping center and have all the attention and shot the spotlight on you,
Mm,
right? But asking, how does that make you feel when that happens? Helps the person expel it and get it out of their body.
yeah.
So it's being inquisitive and just really listening and try to understand, try and put yourself in their shoes so the kids don't suppress it, don't repel it, and make it comfortable to talk about. Because I've realized if we can't talk about it, there's some shame behind it, or
Yeah.
there's a fear of not being good enough.
Yeah.
But for me now, if I can talk about it, there's no shame attached to it because I'm voicing it, I'm sharing it with everybody else, and there's no need to hide from it. So I think
Mm.
that's probably the biggest thing that I'd be passing on to parents is get comfortable talking about things.
Yeah. And it's just about making space, isn't it? Whether it's just, whether it's around the dinner table, it's the norm to talk about the highs and lows from your day, or whether it's, just when you're tucking your kids into bed, or a tip I once heard in a parenting course, I think it was with your teenagers, just to go on and just spend time, just sit on their bed, even though they might not love the idea of you being there at first, rather than every time you go into their room, it's like, hey, can you do this thing? Can you tidy this thing up? Just actually sit on their bed and say nothing and just
Yes.
allow space, and that can then create some of the best
It is. I
conversation.
think that the one step further is ask them how they feel about it. So we ask about their day, how was their experience, but how did that
Mm,
experience make you feel?
yes.
Right? That really unlocks the emotions behind it. It's like, oh, you're seeing me, you're understanding there's so much more than just the surface level things going on. And for me, especially with boys and men that aren't traditionally taught to be vulnerable and emotional, it's helping them get those emotions out that we can tend to just store thinking we're not manly enough if we're emotional.
I love that. Yeah. And I think it's a totally open, non-judgmental question as well. Just say, how did you
Yeah.
feel about that? Whether it was a highlight of the day, or this tough thing happened with their friend group that day, just how did you feel about it? And it probably gives them a chance to articulate that. And that's one of the things
Yeah.
around feelings, is that, name it to tame it, that as soon as you say, oh, I felt judged, or um I felt dishonored, or I felt disappointed about that. Actually, you're not going to change the disappointment, but by being able to acknowledge, I felt disappointed when that happened, and being able to just empathize with that feeling and not change it, not do anything other than just listen. So powerful, right?
It can help you as a parent understand what your child and how their behavior patterns and how their mind's working.
Mm,
And you have enough of those conversations, you start seeing trends about how they're processing things, how their behaviors are showing up, what their mind's telling them. Is fear playing a role in the way they're looking at everything?
yeah. Now, I know, Steve, you talk about upgrading your core operating system. So I'm very
Yeah.
curious to know about this. What do you mean by that?
Oh, interesting. It's what I mean by that is obviously I was an aircraft maintenance engineer by trade. So I had a level of expertise and experiences and skill sets that allowed me to troubleshoot aircraft at the international terminals to a high level. High pressure situations, academically gifted. Troubleshooting was my forte.
Okay.
But, I loved it. But what I was lacking is skills in my behavior patterns. So I realized as I went through my breakdown and mental health challenges and shame with my childhood that I lacked the behavior patterns to support my skill sets, my experience, and my expertise, right? And realized that as an adult at 35 and 40, I was still utilizing behavior patterns I learned as a child to keep myself safe, to keep myself protected, and keep myself in survival as a mature adult. And those behavior patterns were keeping me in fear. They're keeping me reactionary to everyone else's behavior, and they're keeping me in survival mode.
Hmm.
Now, they weren't supporting my skills of growing, developing, and thriving. And they came down to my behavior patterns that were keeping me there. So I needed to reframe those, upgrade those to help shift from fear to courage. They're
So I was going to say, how can you just explain or make that more granular? What sort of patterns, what are the sort of things that you were seeing, or that you typically see when you talk about being in fear and being reactive? Can you
yeah.
give us some examples?
Yeah, well, I was ashamed of how I was treated in my life.
Hmm.
And through my shame, I silenced. I didn't share for 40 years things that I experienced, keeping them to myself because I was afraid other people were going to judge me.
Hmm.
Why? Ultimately, I was judging myself for it. So I didn't want people to see how I saw myself or how I feared I appeared to everybody else. So I silenced everything.
Hmm.
Now, by silencing everything, our mind goes down that same lens of everyone must see us like that. Everyone must see us as weak. Everyone must see us as not being good enough. And that was a behavior pattern that suppressed me. And it wasn't until I started opening up and sharing my challenge with other people, that I discovered that not everybody sees me like that. Yeah, and it allowed me to start getting out of my own head and correcting those behavior patterns, changing that mindset of just because I've had one or two bad experiences with people doesn't mean the rest of the world sees me in that light. But
True.
whilst I kept silent, that narrative was the same record that kept playing over and over and over in my head.
Mm. It's making me think of, for people that are listening in, again, we'll all have our own stories, but it's worth examining, spending some time reflecting and thinking, what are the patterns that we have had? What are the beliefs that we've had? I know that I grew up thinking that I was boring, thinking that I was boring, that I was uninteresting, and that no one would want to spend time with me, essentially, because I felt like I was boring. And it almost can become a self-fulfilling prophecy that you
Yeah.
then shrink, you become more quiet, you become a spectator rather than a participant, and you're just sort of on the fringes, on the edge. Whereas actually, I probably wasn't that boring. It was just something that I got in my head. And it's so interesting, isn't it, that so often we believe that our thoughts are truth. And most of the time, not most of the time, a lot of the time, they're not always. We can believe a whole lot of things that just aren't true. So, how do you create the awareness to then shift that and start changing some of those limiting beliefs to more empowering ones?
Well, I think it's starting to have the conversations with people, right? It's starting to challenge them. So what happened with me as I started transition, I started to realize that fear was controlling a lot of my thoughts, right? So things would enter my head and automatically the negative lens, negative perspective came through.
Hmm.
So it was like, for example, okay, I'm going to give you an example.
Yeah.
I got two boys, aged, they're 2 years apart. Now, when I took them to school, first day walking them to school, I noticed all these new eyes and all these new people looking at me. Now, this was normal for me, but for the first time, I had my son with me, right? And I started wondering, fear entered my head. A kid's going to challenge my son about their dad's birthmark. Are they going to pick on him because of his dad's birthmark? Now, because I was so frightened of the answers, I didn't ask my son the question until they were in 11 and 13 years old. My little preppy and little, child starting school was now 8 years into school, and I still hadn't asked him how my birthmark was affecting them. So I carried that burden for 8 years until I did ask them. I found the courage to ask them, do kids ask you questions about my birthmark? And how do you feel about that?
Yeah. And
And
what
they
did
go,
they
yeah,
say?
Dad, kids do. And what do you say? It's like, it's a birthmark. He was born like that. Yeah, and what happens next? Nothing. We continue playing.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, you're not affected by it. No, it's normal. And I was like, for 8 years, I feared asking them that question because I was petrified. How am I going to respond if they're affected by it? Only to realize when I opened up and asked them, they weren't affected by it at all.
Mm. Fear thrives in darkness, doesn't it? It just thrives in darkness and
It
things aren't
does.
said. But as you say, it's such a simple but powerful message that if we can speak up and share with others and find safe spaces to talk about these things that we worry about, we so often realize that they're very minimal or there's just no issue at all.
Yeah. And so by challenging those fears and those perceived beliefs that we have and proving them wrong, you start asking yourself, okay, what else do I believe is right and wrong? What else is true and what else is actually just in my head? And I've created this lens. And as you start challenging those and breaking those down, you start seeing a pattern that, hey, all these things that I've told myself aren't actually real.
Yeah.
And then you start finding the confidence and freedom to be yourself. I mean, I think the
Mm.
biggest part of my journey was that I allowed a few traumas to change how I felt about myself, right? And once I was able to unpack that and give myself the love I was deserve and see myself for who I was, not allowing other people's perceptions or views or one negative comment to change how I felt about myself, the love for self came through. My belief in who I was came through, and that confidence to do, you know what? I'm unapologetically me. You
Love
know
it.
what? I'm not everyone's cup of tea. Not like everybody is, not everyone's cup of tea, but I'm me and this is who I am. Like it or lump it, I'm just going to embrace me.
Yeah. Love it. I was talking about this the other day. It's something that I've learned over the years, and you'll know this as well. As a speaker, you're in a room of hundreds of people, and I always know that I'm not going to necessarily appeal to every single person. I'm not going to be their exact favorite style of speaker. And I have two choices in that. I can either lean into that and just stick with who I am and be true to myself and know that it's going to connect with the people it's going to connect with, or I could choose to maybe be a bit less Lauren, or maybe I should be a bit more like Steve or Sally or James or whoever. Or maybe I could just be a bit quieter, or a bit softer, or maybe a bit louder or faster, or whatever the thing is. But that's not necessarily going to help at all because there'll be people that don't like that either. And so that whole idea of just realizing, it sounds so cliche, but literally all we can do at the end of the day is be us and be okay with the fact that you're not always going to be everyone's cup of tea, and that's just okay.
It's okay. I mean, the big turning point for me with that in my life was as an aircraft engineer, maintenance engineer, my career ended with insomnia, burnout, PTSD, anxiety, depression.
Okay.
Right? I went through career-ending mental illness and went through divorce at the same time. And when I
Wow.
was coming through that, I realized that it was 35 and 40 years of masking. My life just crashed and burned. I destroyed myself. I destroyed my body. I was trying to carry all this weight with myself. And I was like, if I'm not happy in life and I've been trying to live it how everyone else has told me I should or how I think I should live it, if I'm going to crash and burn, let me crash and burn being me.
Okay.
Right? And that was the big lesson for me. It was like, stop trying to show everyone else who you think they want you to be and just do it your way and see how you go living life your way as opposed to how you think everyone else wants you to live. And that
Mm,
was a really big turning point for me that, yeah, it's unraveled and unpacked the amazing journey that I'm now on.
wow. Amazing. So what was the biggest thing that helped you to go from that low to, really to recover?
It was stop judging myself as fear of failure, opening up, not trying to do everything in life alone, right? Some of the biggest things. I thought that if I couldn't solve my problems, like as an aircraft problem, then I
Mhm.
wasn't good enough. I failed. I felt like I failed in the marriage. I failed my boys. Everything was a failure because I wasn't seeing myself as a success because things weren't heading the direction I wanted to. But burdening that weight alone, it's so heavy. So opening up, finding community, finding support to help people with whatever you want to unpack and realize by having these conversations, you realize you're not the only one in the world facing these challenges. But when you keep it in your head, you are the only person facing this challenge because nobody else knows about it. And
Yes.
someone said to me, an amazing speaker that helped me come into the speaking journey, was that no one can help you if no one knows what you're going through. And it's like, geez, everyone is so busy in their own lives. We don't always pick up on those warning signs. So by saying, hey, this is what I'm going through, this is what I'm really struggling with, you don't carry that burden alone and someone else can help lighten that load with you. Give you a little insight or just listen. Sometimes you just need to hear yourself listen. It doesn't even need anyone else's insight. And yeah, opening up and sharing the challenges and sharing what you're going through has been the biggest thing in turning my life around and put me on the trajectory I'm now on.
Yeah, we are stronger with others. And I love that. I think a really practical way that I've seen that work out for myself and for many clients is setting up accountability trios. And there've been various times that I've had that with different people, having, and trios work really well because even if one of you gets busy, there's still a couple of people there to, say, right, come on, let's connect again. Having some sort of ongoing, regular catch up with someone, or a couple of people where you can just, yeah, be open and share what's actually going on is so powerful, so worth doing.
Yeah, it's yeah, definitely life changing.
I know you talk a lot about courage, so I'm interested to hear again what would be your encouragement to people that are listening into this around, because we can talk about having courage, but how do we actually practically work that out? How do we lower or minimize the fear? How do we build more courage?
Yeah. Well, what I've realized with a lot of what I've unpacked is that we like sitting in our comfort zone, right? Humans are creatures of habit,
Yeah,
right? We love being in our comfort zone and doing things that we know the outcome that we're going to get. I don't know if you know, kids like repeating the same movies over and over again because they know they're going to enjoy that movie.
Yep.
They don't want to try a new movie on the chance that for 1.5 hours they're not going to enjoy it.
Oh my goodness, my children, I have to just tell you, my kids are like this with songs as well. Like we just play the same playlist over and over again, and it's always the big discussion in the car. Oh, can I cue the songs? And every so often a new song will come on, and they're like, I don't know this one. I don't know this one. And I'm like, just go with it. It could be
Yeah.
a great song. Let's just listen to it.
Yeah, and so that relates in that experience as children doing that, we get comfortable knowing the outcomes we're going to get if we're
Yeah,
going to feel good doing something. And in our behavior, it's the same thing. So us doing things that are in our comfort zone, right, keep us to a certain place. We're not growing because we're not challenging ourselves. And often when we do challenge ourselves, we're getting outside our comfort zone and we get a fear response that our brain interprets as if we're actually in a dangerous situation.
yeah,
And it gives us that same feelings of we're in life-threatening situations. But it's us stopping that moment and asking ourselves, are we actually in any danger right now? Or is it our perceived fears coming in to tell us to try and keep us safe? And usually when it's just challenging ourselves to grow, it's not an imminent danger, it's just a perceived fear. And that's a warning sign that we're outside our comfort zone, right? Which is cool, but that's where our growth happens. That's where we challenge ourselves to grow, to explore new adventures, explore new opportunities. We don't know the answers, and that's okay. And what I've understood by the more you get outside your comfort zone, the more you got to start finding comfort being uncomfortable, and then
yeah.
realizing it's just my body telling me I'm trying something new. I'm doing something that's not in my comfort zone, and
Mm.
that's totally different to you being in danger. But
Yes.
our body triggers the same responses, so it's identifying that it's just the body's survival response. Understanding you're not in imminent danger by going up to talking to a stranger, right? You're not in any imminent danger if you're just going to approach them and ask them and have a conversation, right? But we can be afraid of those things because they're not what we normally do.
Love it. And I love the idea of comfort zones. I often say that, the great thing about your comfort zone is that when you step out of it, it doesn't just shrink in around you again, it actually expands. And so the
Yes,
more that you just keep stepping out of your comfort zone and trying something new, the more space you have to go and do more things. And I think literally probably 95% of any success that I've had in life is just that I'm someone who does like to flirt with the edge of the comfort zone. I like putting myself in situations where I'm kind of like, oh,
yeah,
oh, this is really how tough right now. But then somehow it just keeps expanding and it's exciting, isn't it? Hmm.
it is. It's. I mean, I think for me, 40 years of my life when I didn't talk about my challenges, I was kept in that comfort zone, and it became so scary to start challenging that, changing my ways, changing my behaviors, putting myself in situations I didn't like. But what's unraveled and the reward and growth in who I've been. I mean, 4 years ago, I wasn't this confident person. I wouldn't get up on a stage. I hated the spotlight because every time I went out in public, felt I was in a spotlight. But me putting myself on a stage, I was overcoming the fear and realizing that I can do this,
Hmm.
right? With the right support, I can do this. It's not something I need to be afraid of. And the doors just keep unraveling and unpacking, and you meet amazing people like yourself, right? On this journey, it's like, why did I shut all these opportunities down? If I kept this to myself, I wouldn't be on the podcast, I wouldn't be on stages, I wouldn't have written a book, right? I
Yeah.
would have been living in this little safe bubble. And I'm opening a non-profit helping kids and families with birthmarks at the moment. And all these
Right.
exciting adventures wouldn't have happened if I kept myself safe. So
Wow.
it's been the most rewarding experience by finding comfort in the uncomfortable has been so rewarding.
I love it. The speaking up, finding comfort in the uncomfortable and not doing it alone, doing it with others. Tell us a little bit more about your book. Tell us about the title and the key premise to your book.
All right, so my book's called Different, Coming Face to Face with Your Uniqueness.
Nice.
Right, and for me, as I said, it goes into whilst it's a deep dive into my story, it's a personal story. I've added so many lessons and learnings through it. So it's a deep dive into the mind, seeing how for my journey unpacks how fear starts in the mind as a child, how the stories started happening and how I started telling myself that. Then through adolescence, how those fears reaffirmed through behavior patterns and through different actions. They get reaffirmed.
Yeah.
And how they end up leading me to breaking point. My behavior patterns led me to breaking point, right? The warning signs of breaking point and what goes on that people might not be aware of, that your behavior patterns that you instill, whilst they're little and you don't think are having an impact on you, once you start getting overloaded with challenge, which life happens, it's not small things that take you down, but it's an accumulation of lots of things in life that can hinder you. Unpacking that and understanding how behavior patterns can play out through life. And then obviously the big transformation from hiding to opening up, sharing, the big transitions, how I challenge myself weekly, daily to overcome and confront those limiting beliefs and perceived fears. Find the courage, unpack myself, give myself the love that I was worthy of, that I thought I didn't deserve. And I think a big part of it also is that when we go through challenge, we look externally for everyone else's problems instead of internalizing and asking, how am I feeling about myself? So it's changing that mindset, changing the behavior patterns to really help us find ourselves, find out who we are as a person, find our identity, and embrace us. Like, for the outside world to love us, we need to love ourselves first and foremost.
Yeah.
Right? And that's how we
Okay.
express it. And that's the work we look at, asking those questions, finding out within ourselves. Because really, when we have conflict or something that happens on the external side, externally to us, someone says something that triggers something in us, we look externally for why we got upset in the first place. But I challenge to reframe that, look internally and ask us, how does that make us feel about ourselves? And why are we feeling that way about ourselves? Right? Which gives us the power to resolve our own problems. It's not up to anyone else to fix our problems, it's up to us.
Love it.
So we
So
unpack
good.
that and share that. So it unpacks that journey, all the tools that got me from hiding in shame for 40 years to opening up, finding the confidence to get on a stage, and how I challenge myself through that. And the lessons to help everyone else do the same. We've
Love
got
it.
the power to make change. It's in us, yeah.
So good, Steve. And so if people wanted to get in touch with you or hear about your work, find out your book, what's the best place to do that?
My website's stephenbouris.com. So it's STEVENBOURIS.com. You can
Right.
find me there. My book is available, and you can purchase it directly through my website. It'll also be available. So it's different coming face to face with your uniqueness through all major retailers as well. But yeah, and you can connect with LinkedIn and Facebook. I'm on there. You can connect with me or find people that are needing the support for Nevus owners, people with birthmarks, getting support through the communities. That's how you'll find the foundation that I'm setting up as well,
Sounds
to
amazing.
help bring support to people. And yeah, unite. Let's unite. No one's alone on their journey, but the more, that's how we can find each other.
I love it. Yeah, sounds amazing. So, yeah, do follow Stephen's work. Go out and order a copy of the book. It has just come out when this podcast has been released. So, really looking forward to seeing that and doing that amazing work in the world. Thank you for the amazing positive ripple you're spreading. So, as we wrap up, Stephen, if there's just one final thing you want to share with our listeners, what would that be?
Um, you, Everything in life is a choice. Being alone is a choice. The choice we have is by opening up with whatever you're going through, you're no longer alone anymore. So find that courage, take that first step because you don't need to do anything on your own.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for your time. I look forward to sharing this with the world, Steve.
Thanks for having me. It was an honor. Love the work that you do. Big fan of yours, Lauren, and excited to keep seeing how the journey unravels for us down the track.
Fantastic. Thanks so much to everyone for tuning in. That's been another episode of the Thrive TV show. Go out and thrive.
Thank you for listening to the Thrive TV Show with Lauren Parsons. Visit thrivetvshow.com to access the show notes and discover our fantastic bonus content. And be sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next inspiring episode.